Hello, my name is Sujan and I'm going to answer the questions A5 and the text given is the title of the text is Corporate Fraud Free Trade. Um, to sum up the text, the author is saying that free trade gives negative impacts to the domestic industries by causing the unemployment rate rising and depress the economy and make the huge trade deficit. The author is mentioning about few free trade barriers that can be imposed on the economy, such as administrative barriers, and these can help better the environment for workers. And as I highlighted here, um, the government should oppose the free trade agreements to make the economy and societal structure better. And to answer the question A, two on the administrative barriers, um, the first barrier can be the definition of administrative barriers are government or administrative regulations or requirements that result in a lower level of imports to a country. So first type of such barrier can be product standards to meet certain domestic requirements. For example, when importing apple, the apple should weigh more than 5 pounds. Such product standards can be the domestic requirements, and the second barrier can be the sanitary standards to protect the health of consumers as well as industries, and these prevent the nation from getting the influenza or other types of um, epidemic diseases to be imported along with the products. And to answer the question B, first I should define the theory of absolute advantage. And a country is said to have an absolute advantage in the production of a good if it can produce more of it with the same resources or the same amount with fewer resources. So this is the absolute advantage diagram that I draw. Here the horizontal axis is the unit of avocado, and here the vertical axis is units of blueberry. And as you see here, this line is the line that represents the Mexico, because when Mexico produces 30 units of avocado, they only get to produce, the opportunity cost of doing that is 15 units of blueberry. So they get absolute advantage of producing the avocado. The second line here is the line that represents the situation of Maine, because they produce blueberry for unit of 20 while they produce 15 unit of avocado, and this shows that they get absolute advantage by producing blueberry. So they have reverse situation. So each has their own advantageous product to be produced. And move on to the question D. As I said before, the author here is saying that free trade is always bad, and he or she doesn't mention any good part of free trade because that article itself keeps discouraging the governments of any country to restrict the free trade and put more trade barriers to protect the domestic industries. So there are few advantages, however. For example, consumers get to enjoy more variety of products if the free trade is available, and even get an opportunity to consume an exotic food that they never had chance to because the domestic industry doesn't produce or something. Also, there are few types of trade barrier that require a large amount of government spending, such as subsidy on domestic industries. So in this case, by allowing free trade, the government can take their hand off of domestic industries, and this can trigger competitive nature among the industries. For example, Samsung in Korea and Apple in America, two giant smartphone brands, smartphone brands, constantly upgrade their quality of products because they sense that consumers are around the world can compare to brands due to relatively free access to both brands. Most nations can import these electronic devices without a huge trade barrier on it. Not only the government but the producers might benefit from the free trade because some industries have to import their factors of production, such as labor, capital, and resources, from other countries to lower the cost of production. If there are less trade barriers and has free trade between two nations, the producers can decrease the price of their goods by decreasing the cost of production and attract more consumers. This will boost the production itself and increase the output produced domestically, which should also increase the GDP of a nation. For example, if Lipton, a famous tea brand in Great Britain, imports the peppermint leaves from Vietnam, and if there is less or no trade barriers, the Lipton can import at lower price in greater quantity. This may allow consumers to buy the finished tea bags at much lower price, or the company can earn more profit. So these are the advantages of free trade, but knowing that the author in this article also has a point, I mentioned the negative side of free trade. First, as this said, free trade often harms the domestic industry. Example is that there was a FTA, free trade agreement between South Korea and US back in the late 2000s. They signed to lower the tariff imposed on rice and meat imported from each other, and the Korean farmers protested and promoted the boycott over American goods because the price of rice and meat from US was far cheaper than that produced domestically. Likewise, free trade or less trade barrier may sometimes hurt domestic industries and provoke resentment among domestic workers. More than that, if Korea becomes highly dependent on the staple goods, which in this case are rice and meat, imported by the US, Korea gets less autonomy over important food sources. This means that in the extreme case of national emergency, such as warfare, natural disasters, or influx of immigrants, where the staple goods should be ready in abundant amount and stored in national storage, the US might suddenly raise the price of those staple goods because they know that the nation, Korea, has no other choice but to import those goods from the US. The free trade also may possibly increase the unemployment rate because the domestic production might be hindered by the inflow of imports. These are the answers for Number A, B, and D.